All right, B. So I got a question about parenting.
Yeah.
So Andrew and I, obviously Andrew's expecting, he's about to have his baby next month. It's crazy. And we're talking about different parenting styles. Nowadays, things are a little bit different because there's more gadgets and things like that you can kind of just toss at your kid if, you're trying to, focus on something and they're not letting you do it. Give them an iPad. This led into a bigger conversation about kind of, parents that do that. So what is your opinion on parents that are, having the iPad or the iPhone or the TV be the babysitter rather than them being involved themselves?
To have your kids in front of an iPad at a restaurant or an iPhone, to have your kids on an iPad or an iPhone in the backseat of a car while you're driving, just to be able to keep them calm, keep them entertained, keep them from basically being loud and obnoxious kids, you're really doing two very bad things. One, you're killing brain cells on that kid. Number two, like all that blue light flashing in their face and the lack of interaction. Remember, the way babies learn from the time they're in little high chairs, like I think right now you have two that are probably high chair friendly and one that's not, right? Your oldest daughter probably just sits on a regular chair. But from the time they're high chairs all the way through like teens, man, they learn through interaction, engagement. And if we're not interacting and engaging with our kids and then correcting them, like, hey, we're at a restaurant, you can't be loud, you can't throw food, And I'll give you a great example. This past weekend, I was in Fort Lauderdale, spoke at that Hybrid Health Summit. I had breakfast at my hotel. Shout out to the Four Seasons at Fort Lauderdale. And I had breakfast at my hotel, and I hear a family just over my shoulder, and I look, and there's a kid who's got an iPhone flashing at his face, and like the kid's barely even blinking. Like you've seen that where there's this catatonic state of just watching.
They're locked in, dude.
Yeah, and then the dad is feeding the kid food, and the kid just robotically opens its mouth, takes the food, chews, all what, like no engagement. Right. How is this kid going to grow up and have any kind of people skills? How's this kid going to grow up and have any kind of coping skills? How's this kid going to grow up and have any kind of relational skills? Because at that table, if you interact and engage, and if you tell the kid, hey, because that kid was probably about 3 years old. Damn, it wasn't a baby.
Small, yeah. But still young. Though.
Right? 3 years old. Like I remember we were telling Andrew and Chloe, hey, when the waiter comes, say, hello, how are you? Ask them how they're doing. Like a 3-year-old knows how to say, hello, how are you? And they would. And like the waiter or waitress would be like, oh my God, your child. Right. And inevitably, man, when we would leave, when we would go to a restaurant and when the people around us would leave, they would always walk up, especially the older grandmas, grandpas, who lived in a generation where there was no iPhones and iPads.
Right.
They would always walk up to me and Di and be like, your kids are so engaging. Your kids are so tuned in. They have so much light in their eyes. Like it was impressive how they just held conversations. Like people are watching. Mm-hmm. And if you're allowing your kid to just be babysat by a screen because it's more convenient for you than to engage and to connect and to teach him or her the highs, the how are yous, etiquette, politeness, etc. Well, sure, it's probably making your life more convenient and comfortable now, but in the future, you're going to have a more anxious, depressed, and socially inept young adult who, as we look around today, we see that and like, fuck, man, they're in an elevator. They can't even make eye contact with me as I'm going down 6 flights at a hotel, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, wow, you're a 16, 17-year-old young man. Like, what the fuck is going on? I just walked in from the gym and you're like, they just start shuddering. Like, that shouldn't be happening.
Right.
So I think that's abuse from the parents. And I also think that is the fastest way to neglect the development of a young mind. Listen, I stopped taking all of those and I started taking this, the Trulian Wellness Shot. In fact, I created this because I was sick and tired of every morning taking 11 different supplements like turmeric, ginger, cayenne pepper, black pepper, vitamin B12, echinacea, vitamin C, zinc, right? Think about this. If you want to improve your immune system, if you want to fight off inflammation in your body so that you have better gut health, you have more energy, your joints don't hurt, then you're going to want to take all those supplements. And I was taking it twice a day, every day. And so when we created the Trulian Wellness Shot, we cut no corners and we spared no expense. And so in this, you've got something that's going to not only help boost your immune system, but also fight off inflammation. Because if you're a high performer and if you want to get more done, if you want to stay more focused, if you want to make sure that you don't get sick as frequently, then you have to care about your immune system and you have to fight off inflammation, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you're high performing and you have a stressful work day from time to time, right? And so here's what I want you to do. You're going to click on the link in the description box or go to truelean.com and you're going to use the code word Bedros. And when you use my name, Bedros, you'll get 50% off your first subscribe and save bundle. For whatever reason you don't like the True Lean Wellness Shot, which I've yet to meet anyone who doesn't, then let us know in your first 30 days. We'll give you a full refund. Part ways as friends. Fair enough? Go check it out. Use the code word Bedros. Get 50% off. Peace.
Do you think it's laziness on the parents' part, or do you think it's that they don't have the tools themselves, and so they're just like, I'm probably both, actually, for sure. I mean, laziness, because they're just like
1,000% is laziness. But if you don't have the tools, guess what? There's something called Google, right? So
how do his own Googles.
How do I engage with a 2-year-old
Right.
at a restaurant?
Right.
I bet you there's probably about 50 psychologists and child therapists who have written articles on medium.com or created YouTube channels that are like, hey, if you don't want to put an iPad in front of them and fry their fucking brains, then here's how you would actually engage and connect with your child at a restaurant. Here's how you would get them to start, like, we started teaching Andrew and Chloe sign language when they were puppies, when they couldn't, so that they, instead of crying for something, Andrew was like, water. He would make the water sign. I still remember it. The please and thank you. If he had to poop or if he had to pee. Like, I fucking started learning this shit, right? Because I realized, like, wow, this is helping and both of my kids started to develop faster. They both started walking earlier than normal. You know, when you go to the doctor and they tell you the percentile, like, oh, your kid's at the 90th percentile, right? My kids were always the highest percentile. It wasn't because, like, I'm some fucking genius in terms of genetics or diet. It's because we did the things that helped their brains develop early. Guess how we did that? We did a Google search, and like, how do you help kids develop their brain faster? What kind of music should they listen to? We had a fucking symphony or like Mozart playing in our house, right? Like, those were the things that we did because we wanted to give our kids the advantage. Could it have been more convenient to put an iPad or iPhone in front of them? Absolutely. But even when we went to Denny's, we made sure that we engaged, taught them how to engage. And when they were just having outbursts, yes, it's more convenient to put an iPhone in front of them. Instead, hey, server, can you box up our food? We're going to have to take it to go because our kid's having a meltdown.
Right.
Teaching our kids that there's a repercussion to you having a meltdown. And guess what? Sooner or later, they're like, oh, I better shut the fuck up and not have a meltdown at this restaurant if I want to stay here and not go home and go to bed, right? And that's how that works.